This is really an extraordinary opportunity. My husband and I have had the good fortune of knowing Jason, Dana, his kids, well, what, 50 years? 40?
You were all in college together, and I'm 65, so not quite 50.
Not quite 50, right. I had the extraordinary experience of seeing him on stage when you were 18. And it was a moment in the theater that I will never forget. And it was a moment that I knew we were in the company of greatness, because you saw the spark of improvisation. You saw the spark of someone who said, I'm on stage. There's a full house here.
I know what I think you're going to talk.
That's what I'm going to ask. So you prepare for that, but I do want to say one thing. This man has more hyphenates in his experience than he has letters in his name. And there are things that he knows and does and has built this, an extraordinary career that comes from his heart. You look in the dictionary under the word mensch and you're going to see Jason Alexander. But let me just take you back to, you're 18 years old. We all went to Boston University together, and they were doing a play, a lesser known title, Dark of the Moon? Dark of the Moon. I would just love, because something happened on stage, and we all witnessed it. I was there that night, and we said, holy shit, that is genius. And I just tell that story if you can, because it was classic.
I remember key points of it. You may have to fill me in on how it ended, but Dark of the Moon is about a rural community that is infiltrated by a man who is a witch, and nobody believes it. And it's sort of this supernatural romance between him and one of the women in the town. And I was playing sort of the town bully, and at one point, and I know there's something strange about this guy, and I can't put my finger on it, and I don't know what it is, but I challenge him to a feat of strength. And the feat of strength is to lift this giant barrel, wooden barrel, filled with apples. And what is supposed to happen is I struggle to lift it up, and then I put it down all triumphant, and he's basically supposed to one-arm it and lift it, So to do that, they built it out of styrofoam slats with a flat styrofoam top and glued a couple of fake apples in the top. So it weighs 1.5 pounds or something like that. And I go first, and I, get up and, with my BU training in movement and fine art, to get this barrel to go, a foot, and then triumphantly I'm like, woohoo! And on this one performance, I woohooed and jumped into the arms of my cohort, and my foot kicked the bottom of this barrel. And it went bounce, right? And the guy playing the witch was not happy with me because I've now blown that. But all I remember is that, all I remember of what I did was I turned around and saw it, and I went to the town going, as if that was part of the show. I didn't make a mistake. That was what's supposed to happen. And Mark Arnold, I remember Mark Arnold played he hated it. He probably hates me to this day. He was like, you did that on purpose. I couldn't have done that on purpose if my life done that. But it was one of those things about, how do you dig out of that? They all saw it.
Well, it was hysterical. The audience laughed and said, genius, that's genius. But, speaking of genius, can we segue into the things you've said yes to? What, I'm not saying, you were cast in that, but when your career started after school, and you went right to New York, yes?
Well, I didn't finish school because New York
Right, called.
called me. Yeah.
And talk about that. I mean, how did you know that was the right thing to do at that time in your life?
Oh, I didn't know crap. The summer after my junior year, I got cast in my first feature film. It was a horrible horror movie. It was sort of a rip-off of the Friday the 13th movies. It was called Burning. Woo! Thank you for your patronage. It was notable in that it was my first film, it was Holly Hunter's first film, and it was Harvey Weinstein's first film. For another now. But that film ran a couple of weeks over schedule, and I was going to be 2 to 3 weeks late for my senior year. And two things had happened. In that time period, and my wife is out here, so Dana, remind me if I'm wrong about this. But somewhere in that time period, I had auditioned for the original company, Merrily We Roll Along, and the good news was I got it. The bad news was it had to delay for several months while Hal Prince did another show. I was working in an office that my wife walked into, and I fell in love, and I did not want to leave. So I called Judy Flynn, our advisor, and I said, you know, I'm 3 weeks late. They're telling me you can't catch up with the work. I went, really? We're kind of studying walking and talking. I've been doing that for 19 years now. I think I could catch up. They thought I couldn't catch up, and Judy said, is the show for real? And I said, well, they say it's real. She said, why don't you take this semester off, and if it's not real, you'll come back, and if it is real. And it turned out to be real, and I didn't want to walk away from Dana, because I knew if I didn't keep romancing her on a weekly basis, I was playing way above him, and it was not going to hold. So my absence would not have helped that romance at all. That took a constant amount of work to keep that. But that was what it was. And you know, it's one. It is a question that actors get so often about how do you make the choices you make in your life? How do you say yes to some things and no to others? I think there's 50 people in our business that are making choices. Everybody else is going, you want me? Thank you. Is it porn? No. Great, let's go. So the things that were falling into my path just happened to be really kind of cool stuff. I mean, Merrily We Roll Along, if you don't know it, was a musical written by Stephen Sondheim, directed by Hal Prince. It was the same group of writers and director that did Company, which was a gigantic hit, and then did Merrily, which was a gigantic flop. But you know,
you were wonderful. I saw that production. You were incredible. The show is incredible.
The score is incredible. Steve's score is incredible. And if you saw the one that was just on Broadway, to huge accolades, I went going, oh my God, they fixed it. They figured out how to do it. It's 92% of it was exactly the show we did in 1981. And I'm on an email chain with the original cast, and I wrote to them and I said, the show didn't change, the audience changed. The audience is ready for the show now.
Right.
So, but that's how most of what happened in my career were not choices. They were opportunities that people, you wouldn't go, nah. You'd jump. You know?
Yes, but. You know what I said before about the hyphenates. You are so unique in that you have diversified in your life, in your career, in the choices you've made, the things you pursue, and where does that come from? Because you sort of follow your passion, and somehow creatively and strategically it turns into something, and you build it into something, and you do it collaboratively too. So, I mean, just talk about that, because that's something that comes from you. whether it's magic, whether it's podcast, whether it's writing, whether it's directing, whether it's teaching. I mean, I could go on for the rest of the day talking about it. But what is it that, when that spark starts, what's the decision making behind pursuing it?
So you know this. Up until the age of 12, I had never been on a stage. I did not think of, I loved the theater. My parents would take me all the time, and I loved being in the audience. But I did not contemplate myself as a performer of any kind. But I was heavily into magic. And I really wanted to be a magician. I wanted to be a close-up magician. When I was 12, two things happened at the same time. One, we moved from Maplewood, New Jersey to Livingston, New Jersey. Where I knew not a soul. Now that will come back in 1 second. And I went to magic camp. Yes, I'm that kid. I went to Tannen's Magic Camp in New York City and studied with this fantastic close-up magician. And he looked at me after 2 weeks and went, mostly because to this day, I have small hands. I cannot palm a standard deck of playing cards. One corner will peek out somewhere. My hands are not big enough. And when you eliminate cards from the world of close-up magic, you're probably not going to play the big cruise ships anyway.
Big room.
So, all of a sudden, this one thing that I thought I was kind of okay at and had any kind of vision for was suddenly murky. And the first person that approached me so at 12 years old, I know I'm an Adonis now, but when I was 12, I was about I'm 5'5" now, I was probably about 5'3", close to 200 pounds, with braces and the beginnings of a bald spot. And my parents thought it would be a great idea for me to meet people that summer by giving me a membership to the community pool, because the Speedo would help that much. Anyway, I'm in this pool, and I'm just miserable. I'm in water up to my chin. I hate everything in life. And this very attractive teenage girl comes up and goes, "Hi, do you sing?" And I'm like, "I do now." Livingston had a really active teen theater community, really well supported by the community. And I got pulled into my first show ever. And what got me was not being on stage and performing. What got me was, it was the thing I never had, which was a community. I found my tribe. And that's all I wanted. I just wanted to be with people like that. They would go into New York every weekend and see 2 shows on Saturday and often come back on Sunday, because at the time, I think the round trip bus was less than $1. And if you were a student, you could stand at the back of any Broadway show for $1. So you could really see stuff. And about 4 or 5 months into doing this with them on a regular basis, we went to a preview of Pippin. And if you've seen the original company of Pippin, the curtain goes up and there's all these disembodied hands in a cloud of smoke, and they're just going, woo. And then Vereen comes out and goes, "Join us, leave your field to fly." And I went, I want to be him. That to me, and it was the combination of magic being used to tell a story for the first time. So I'm sitting there, and as I'm sitting there, I go, "Oh, it's all an illusion. It's an illusion. I could do that illusion. I could have tiny hands and do that." And so when you say, how does the hyphenate begin? What I realized that day was, I don't sing and dance. Not like that. I have to learn how to do that. If I'm going to be Bette Vereen, I have to learn how to do that. So the next day, I signed up for voice classes. And 2 days after that, I signed up for the Lippel School of Dance, where 2 former Ziegfeld Follies girls, so they're in their 80s, are teaching me how to tap. And I am 200 pounds, 5'3", in leotards and tap shoes. It was not pretty, but that began the idea of, for me, like when I auditioned for The Rink, my second Broadway show. I go to the audition, I sing, I dance, I read. They go, "Great, you roller skate." I go, "Yes." Never been on them in my life. And they go, great, the skating audition is 2 weeks from now. And I go, I got to learn how to skate. And I went up to I rented skates where you have to give them your shoes, you know, and I'm like crawling uphill to get to Central Park. I'm on lampposts and things because I knew roller boogie was a thing then, so I knew there would be guys with boom boxes up in the park, and maybe one of them would take pity on the little white kid, and you know. And yeah, sure enough, 2 guys went, yeah, we'll show you a couple things. And so this idea of, well, that's what I have to do. I have to learn this new skill. I have to learn this new thing. So, okay, jump cut to Seinfeld. I'm sitting there, you know, we do 2 seasons. It's more like theater than anything else. There's 4 cameras and a live audience. So we would be doing a scene like we're doing it. I'm not worried about marks. Cameras are shooting what they shoot. I have an agent that goes, you should direct one of those. And I go, sure. But I asked, I said, hey, would you ever let me direct one? And they went, well, you have to shadow, you have to do it. And then they did. So I went, oh, I could learn how to do that. Well, if you do that with 4 cameras, what do you do with 1? Because I never went to film school, and I'm not a film buff. And then you kind of, well, here's the other thing. In BU, you know this story because you've heard me tell it, but I did not think of myself as funny at all. I was not what I thought of as a comedian. And I was trying to do very dramatic, you know, Dark of the Moon, Lift the Barrel kind of thing. We had a professor named James Spruill who pulled me into his office at the midway point of my sophomore year, and he was terrific. And he had this kind of deep basso voice, which I always do when I tell this story. And he said, I know your heart and soul is Hamlet, and you would be a profound Hamlet. You will never play Hamlet. So you best get good at Falstaff. And I went, what? Falstaff is funny. He's the funny one. And what Jim was saying to me was, look in the mirror. If you want to have what we think of as a commercially successful career, you better get friendly with comedy because you have a persona for comedy. And that's when I started listening to comedy albums and going back and watching great comedic performances on film and television, going, why are they funny? How are they funny? And I stole from everybody to try and create, you know, like a dictionary of comedic stuff, you know, what we call the bag of tricks. What's your bag of tricks? So that idea of saying yes to a challenge. I would tell a story about something that happened with me and my son. A friend of mine goes, that's a children's book. You should write that. And I go, okay. And then the children's book gets published. And then somebody at BU said, could you come teach a master class? And I said, well, I've never really taught what I do, but I suppose I could. And I thought about it for a week so that I would actually have something to say. I went, oh, I kind of love that experience, and then figured out more and more about what I believe is my technique, my approach, my understanding. So Dana will tell you, I say no to tons of stuff, but when it's about something that I get interested in, I go, yeah, okay, let's try that on.
That's what I think is, again, so, you know, you talk about someone who is an artist, but who has a generosity of spirit. And you do teach, and you have been teaching recently. And talk a little bit about what that means to sort of pass it on, pass it along to a younger generation of people who are learning and growing, because it's not just a craft and a skill in this, but it's a philosophy. It's an approach to life and living. And you live a whole life, a full life, which I think is so just so genuine. And you know, the word authentic is thrown around a lot, but this is authenticity. This is a man who lives and practices, you know, a meaningful life. And what is it, and how is it when you're teaching younger people and you're sharing not only technique and skill, but also a philosophy on life?
The philosophy actually found itself in the teaching. I didn't have a philosophy. I do now, but I didn't have one when I started. What I did have, because of the guy who I really learned from, was a guy named Larry Moss, who I think is still quite an older guy right now, but I think he's still, yeah, he's great. For years, whenever somebody was accepting an Academy Award, they'd thank Larry Moss because he had coached them on the film during their, award-winning performance. What Larry gave me that no other teacher gave me was, we learn in theater school the tools of the craft. This is an objective, this is an intention, this is an obstacle, this is a blah, 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 blah. And if I put it in carpentry terms, I can tell you how to use a saw, I can tell you how to use a screwdriver, I can tell you how to use a hammer, and we go, got it, saw, screwdriver, hammer. If I go, great, now build a house, you go, I don't know how to build a house. But that's kind of what they do. They go, you now know the tools, go out and make stuff. Larry was the first guy who said, here's the blueprint. You must do this, then you must do that, then you must do that, and then you can do that, and now you're on your way. So what I loved was giving a student was what he gave to me. It was not, let me critique your performance. It was, what did you intend to build? Did you build it? Then we can discuss what might be a better choice, what you may have missed in the text, what was possible that you didn't explore. But it was based on, what do you want to build? You're in charge. That had never been given to me. And that's what I knew I could turn around and share with a student, to go build what you think is right. Forget what I think about what you build. What do you think about what you build? And here's how to build it. That was incredibly rewarding. Where the philosophy tacked on was something I learned doing the movie of Love, Valor, Compassion, where I was directed by Joe Mantello, who probably is the best director I've worked for so far. And if you don't know the movie, it's about several summers in the lives of 7 gay men who are in relationships, and they're all friends with each other. And my character was created by Nathan Lane. It is the most flamboyant character in the film, in the story, and extremely, I don't want to use caricature, but when we think of a flamboyant gay man in the 80s, he had all those characteristics, and he was, as noted in the play, a theater queen. His whole life is about, he knows everything about music theater, everything. And he's dying. His lover is dying, and he is dying. And there's an aria, a 2.5-page monologue, late in the film for this character, where he talks about how fed up he is with being who he is, and I want to see a Sound of Music where the entire Von Trapp family dies, and I want to, and the monologue at the very end becomes a thing where he says to, in my case, the actor Stephen Spinella, do you promise when it's my turn to go that you will be there? The last face I see on this planet will be yours. And I knew that this was an emotional tour de force, and I hadn't used those muscles in a while, and so I prepped and I went in there. And I said, Joe, film me first, please, get it done. I don't know how many times I can do this. And I do 3 takes, and I am so fucking good, Nina. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, everything that I wanted to happen, happened. And I'm crying, and I'm geschrying, and I'm very happy with my work. And Joe says to me, great, let's do one more. And in this take, you're not afraid of dying, you're not bitter, you're not angry, but you really don't want to die alone. Make sure you get Stephen to promise that he will be the one to be with you. And I go, for the whole thing? You want me to play that for the whole thing? That's great. And he goes, it's just a piece. It's just a piece. We have it. We got it. Just a piece. All right. So I think about it for a couple minutes. I go, okay, let's go. And I do a take that where in my head, I'm just focused on Steve Spinella, and are you going to promise to be there? And it's actually, I realize it's a good performance, but what it's doing for the first time in any take is Steven Spinella is crying. And Joe goes, cut! And he comes out from Video Village and looking like the cat that swallowed the canary. And I go, that's the take, isn't it? And he goes, oh yeah. And what it was the beginning of my understanding of what I now teach. Part and parcel of what I teach is, every time I am on a stage with you, you are the most important thing in my scene. not me. What can I offer you? What can I get you to do? What's there for me to serve you? And when you start to look at your work through that lens, you try things you've never considered. You're not worried about your line reading. You're worried about, can I get Nina to stand up now and dance? How do I get her to do that with the words that I have? And that changed everything for me as a teacher, as an actor, as a director. That changed the world. And it started with Joe giving me that lesson.
That's insane. That's just brilliant and insane. And now, as you just said, taking that, and you've been directing for a while, but you know, talk if you can a little bit about that. Your recent Broadway show, Jason directed a show that was on Broadway 2 summers ago, The Cottage, written by Sandy Rustin. Jason directed it, an extraordinary production. And there were a lot of moving pieces in that. And as funny and as lively a romp as it was, there were some really sort of important thematic undertones, and the performances were funny as could be, but nuanced and subtle. Sort of talk about that transition, because again, that's on a gigantic stage. And the piece was so rich and so full, and you know, the audience, no matter where you looked on stage, there was something to capture your imagination, entertain you over here, and talk about that transition, you know, into that size space. I mean, you've directed in big spaces before, but this had so many moving pieces and so much was going on, and it was an incredible production. But talk about that, because everything was grounded and real.
And nuts.
And nuts, good nuts.
Sandy wrote a really interesting play. It is she'd kill me for saying this, but it's a spoof of the old Noel Coward plays. So it's very British, it's very behavioral, it's very, you know, stiff people doing non-stiff things and having sex and getting drunk and, you know. And in many ways, kind of 2.5-dimensional characters. You know, they're not fully formed people. And it's this crazy romp of, you know, this couple's having an affair and she's decided they're going to be a couple, so she sent a telegram to their individual spouses who now show up, but they're having an affair, and it's and then a killer is in their midst. It's nuts. And it's in this very strange cottage that was owned by somebody's mother, and she has, you know, like, the newel of a banister opens up and there are cigarettes hidden in there. People are smoking constantly. Cigarettes just appear out of the penis of a statue of David. Is like, you know, yeah. But it's also a story, ultimately, about the lead woman who it winds up without anybody in this piece, but winds up inheriting this cottage. And it was about a woman, it takes place in 1923, where he did not own property, and a woman could not determine the direction of her own life unattached from a man or an estate. And this young woman comes into her exigency over her own life as a result of this. And you feel it. You feel her go, I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I've done, and I do not want a man to answer that question. It is time for me to stand up on my own 2 feet. So suddenly this silly froth becomes something more. So how do you get there? You know, that's the challenge of that piece. And how do you create a world where 6 funny, silly actors have a playground? What's the playground? So some of it was, you know, going back to the author and going, we can do better. Instead of having them hide in the parlor and coming out to confront the killer with a fireplace poker, what if the only place they could hide was in the trophy room, the big game room, and he comes out with a swordfish? That would be funny and real. But it's also, if you if you were stuck in a trophy room, you're looking for anything that would, so he comes out at one point with a swordfish, another time with a porcupine. And it was finding all this silliness, giving them the things to find their silliness. And this is the thing we were talking about last night. I used to think directing was having all the right answers. I now know better directing is asking all the right questions and then listening everywhere and looking everywhere for where the good answers really are. My cast created some hilarity I wouldn't have thought of in 1,000 years. And I was standing there going, yes, thank you, that's so good. My second AD solved 2 of my biggest staging problems where he went, why don't you just do that? And I would go, oh my God. And then guiding them to the point where that subtle change that allows her to stand up, and you find yourself caring about her and caring about all of them. Just had to be carefully navigated about when do you give them this piece of information or this idea to explore. One of the biggest problems in a play like that is I thought of them as a really great Harlem Globetrotter team, where they can all do crazy ball handling. They're all masters. But when you pass the ball, you've passed it. If I can keep dribbling a ball that I no longer have, first of all, I look crazy, and the guy with the ball gets no attention. They had to learn that. They had to learn how to be a comedic ensemble. And that was a lot of me going, you passed it. You passed it. Watch. And this is what I mean about who's important. He's important now. Your job now is to serve him. When he passes that ball, then it's his job. When you've got 6 creative, crazy comedy actors, that's a big ask. And making them comfortable with that, it was heavy lifting. I said, the cottage it's a bubble. It's a little bubble. What I learned in that was making light things is very heavy work. It's very heavy work. It takes more effort than doing Death of a Salesman. Because Death of a Salesman is what it is, and all you have to do is do it right. This you have to create. And it was crazy.
And just to add a little promotion here, we sold the cottage to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and it's being developed as a feature that if all the stars align and everything works out, Jason will be directing it next spring. Sitting up a little bit of a segue into a little personal for 1 second. And it's a question that mostly women get for whatever reason, but balance. In your life, you've had a busy career, your wife has a career, you have 2 kids, you're constantly working, the man works sun up to sundown every day. How do you find balance? What is that like? Again, women ask, it's like, how do you do it? You work and you have kids. And I said, well, now tables turn. I'm asking this gentleman right here. How does that work?
You are intimately familiar with the answer. That woman. Dana has been my partner in life for 45 years. I'll give you a great example of, it is, if not all her, almost all her. And I'll give you a great example. So Seinfeld ended. I was never in love with film or television. It wasn't what I thought my career was going to be. I was just trying to get over the river to New York. And all through the 80s, I was living my dream. I was working on Broadway. And when Seinfeld ended, our kids were, they were like, what, 10 and 7 or something like that. And I said, let's get out of here. Let's go back to New York. Let's go back to what we were doing. And her answer more or less was, sure. Yes, if that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do. Let me just ask you a question. You know what 8 a week is like. You know the demands on your time. You know what you're like during the day. Weekends, you'll be out the door. Holidays, you'll be out the door. When they come home, you'll go to work. So let me just ask you, on your deathbed, do you think you will remember your great nights on the stage or the nights you tucked your children into bed? And I went, okay, we'll stay in LA. But I don't know how anybody can do it without someone who can reflect you back to yourself. Because we all get lost and we all go, ooh, I'm going to chase the shiny thing, or the thing that's sparkly at the moment. And domesticity doesn't always sparkle. But in every case, the other answer to the question I get a lot is, how do you have a relationship that goes that long? And again, what I will tell you is, if you're lucky enough to have a partner who, when you're at your worst, this is a quote that I once heard in Raisin in the Sun. And when I read it, I was young, I was a young teenager, and it stayed with me forever, and then I married it. And the quote was, in Raisin in the Sun, Walter Lee has lost the family money to a con man, and all the chances that they're going to move, and the sister's career of going to medical school, it's all ruined, and everybody hates him. Everybody hates him. And the daughter says to the mother, how do you not hate him? How do you still love him? And the mother says, and I quote, baby, when do you think is the time to love someone the most? When they've done good and made everything easy for everybody? It's when they're at their lowest and can't believe in themselves anymore because the world's done whipped them so. So my version of that is, when I am at my worst, I have a partner who remembers me at my best and beckons me back. And when that happens, then you find balance, because Dana and I talk about everything that comes up, every possibility, do we do this? Do we want to do this? What is the cost? No, I need to do this. Are you sure? I think, the life is, I'm away from the family doing my job, or I'm with the family. I was offered a role in the current Glenn Ross, and I said to the producer, if you had offered me any other role, I would have said yes. But the one you offered me, you're asking to leave my grandson for 6 months for a job I could do tonight. There's no challenge to it. There's nothing in it that beckons to me, other than it's a really cool idea and a really cool cast, and it's going to be a big hit, but it doesn't equal Grandpa. Just doesn't.
And I have to say, he is one of the cutest children on the planet, if I do say so myself. Well, that quote is pretty profound and good words to live by. We could probably talk for the next 3 days. I think I'm obligated to ask, not obligated, but I would love to take a few questions from the audience. If anybody, yes?
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Wait, you have to wait for the microphone?
He didn't have a question. He just, he was making a Seinfeld reference.
I have to also say that questions end with a question mark. I have learned that from the Lighthouse. Okay.
Thank you, brother. I'll come right to you. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, right there. Question. You're supposed to wait for the microphone. And there it comes.
But you look like an actor, and I'm assuming you could fill this entire place with your voice.
Whatever. So you brought Ross right up your like that.
I can hear you. Okay.
So you got a lot of experience in your lifetime, maybe played a lot of characters, and I'm curious, what to you have made the most eager to play a character? What was all your favorite characters that you played? Like, had to comment or really brassy that made you say, yes, this is like conceptual, this is excellent. This script part, no look or do I comment?
If you couldn't hear it, he's basically asking what about any given role that I said yes to was the thing that made me say yes to that project. Any moment. It could be a line, it could be a gesture, it could be a thing where I went, oh, got to do that. I got to say that. I want to say that. Or I want to play that moment. It can be one moment. But when you read something and something jumps out at you and you go, oh, I can't say no to that. And then I've been lucky enough that the people surrounding those projects are generally people I'm happy to be working with. But that's it. If I read a thing and I go, it's good, but there's nothing I'm dying to do in it, then it's a coin toss. But when it's not, then you take any deal they throw at you and go, yes, please. So it's just that one moment, you know. When I'm teaching, I always talk to students. I tell them to go see the movie of Network, because the actress Beatrice Straight won an Academy Award for one scene. She's in one scene, and I will go so far as to say she won it for one line in that one scene. Now, it's a great line, but the line is, she finds out her husband's having an affair, and she goes, her line is, when she's reading in the riot act, she says, I'm your wife, goddammit, and if you can't work up a winter passion for me, then the least I deserve is respect and allegiance. And let me tell you, Beatrice Straight killed that line. And that's what I mean. You know, she was a profound star of stage and screen. Yeah, sure, great auspices in this movie, but you're asking me to do a one-scene role? She read that scene and went, oh, I'm you know? And that's what I look for, is that moment.
All the way in the back over there, the gentleman right, yeah, you. Sorry.
How you doing, sir?
Hi, good.
We saw you out and about last night in town. Hope you enjoyed Dairy King. So if you would,
Love Dairy King.
so,
Coin toss between that and Coors. Coors brother. By the way, Dairy King isn't fooling anybody with that name. Yeah. Just want to say.
we didn't really, want to bother you. But I'm going to shoot my shot right now. I would love to brag to my Yankees group chat that we met the assistant to the traffic secretary. And could we get a picture with you later after this?
What's actually the question? I'm sorry.
Could I get a picture with you after this, real quick?
If you catch me, yeah. I actually have to run. My producer and best friend Mike Jackman is doing one of these at another venue.
Yeah, we're gonna
and I'm running to that one.
Running
So
to that, but-
if you see me at Dairy King, the answer is yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Question right there? No, you're supposed to ask a question. That's what we're here to do. Questions. Questions.
Thank you, Tony.
I got pictures from that predate Nina that we want to share with you.
Okay, you know what? Meet me on the stage door after. Okay, Ken?
Perfect.
Thanks.
And let's try and keep it to questions. This right here. Yes, this one. Young lady.
I have greetings from my father
Bob Lamb was my high school drill.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I remember Mr. Valentine.
And
I'm
this
sure I was
is
his
your
favorite
life.
student. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I killed it in gym class. I was the go-to. Yeah. So
Okay, Matt Dillon.
this lady is the wife of one of my gym teachers and my son. I was probably not his favorite student, but she's referencing a gentleman named Bob Lampf, who was many things to me. He was my homeroom teacher. He was the drama coach. He directed all the plays and musicals at our school. Bob and I are still friends to this day. Yeah. He was a huge, important factor to me. Here's the truth. There are two parts of me. The worst 5 words in show business for me are, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Alexander. I did not go into this to be the center of attention. When I tell you that when I stepped into that first production in the Teen Theater at Livingston, what got me was the community, not the spotlight. My career became something that has a spotlight, and I have never been fully comfortable in it. I've had to generate Jason Alexander, not Jay Greenspan, right? My name is Jay Greenspan. And Jay Greenspan is a lot quieter, shyer, less funny, lives a much smaller, happier life. Jason lives in this other world where he has to look people in the eye when they say wonderful things like you've said to me, and I've been in therapy to go, you can do this, you can do this, you can take it. What Bob gave me was the beginning of that transition to Jason, because what he said was, you're the guy. You're the one. You're gonna get there. So start prepping for it. And his absolute belief that there was no way it wasn't gonna happen actually gave me what I needed when I met Nina. If you talk to anybody at BU, they will tell you I was the cockiest son of a bitch they ever saw. And their confidence out the butt. None of that was true. None of that was true. I was sure I was going to be cut from the program at every moment. I thought I was the worst actor in the thing. But because of what Bob said, I began to create, in fact, over-create this persona that said, okay, stay there, stay there, stay there, say yes, do it, take the limelight. When they offer it, take it, because of him. And had he not given me that, I would never have found the balance between Jay and Jason that I kind of walk in now.
Thank you. Well, I thought it was going to be Matt Damon moment in, with Kevin Kline. Why am I blanking on? What is it? Say it again?
Fish called Mud.
No. Well, Kevin Dillon, Matt Dillon outs his high school, In and Out, right, remember? Do you remember what? Yeah. Oh my God, he outs his high school drama teacher. I think we have time for one more question, or no? One more question over there? That right there with your hand up, right here. One more question there.
Oh, you were prepared, yes.
I'm curious to know, in an industry that really tries to put you into a box, being a multi-hyphenate creative, how do you push back against that and resist that to be able to do all of the things that you're doing?
The fact that you are multi-hyphenate, that's more desirable now, and
Yeah, the only place I've been tried to put in a box, really, is everyone would like me to play some form of George again. So a lot of the reason I don't act as much as anymore is because a lot of people ask me to do another version of George. If I had one, I'd be happy to do it, but I only had that one. A lot of the hyphenate stuff has come when another door closes. So, okay, I don't like the roles they're offering me as an actor. Well, I'll direct. I'll teach. I'll write something. I'll get involved with a project. I started doing ceramics 15 years ago because there was nothing else to do. Nothing was happening. Fine, I'll go make pottery.
you're good.
I'm all right. It's not good. But part of it is, when a path is shut down, find another path. When something says no, find a yes. Not being in a box, the most powerful word any artist has, but it takes cojones to use it, is no. I'll do your film, but I want you to put space aliens in it. No. I want you to play the scene this way. No. I'll tell you you want to go out on the cute side? So, the piece that I won the Tony Award for was a piece that I thought would not do a thing for me as an actor. It was garbage. It wasn't going to be a thing for me. It was a show called Jerome Robbins' Broadway. And thank you very much. And it was essentially a review of the great dances for the theater that Jerome Robbins created in the 25 plus years that he was directing and choreographing for the theater. West Side Story, Fiddler on the Roof, Gypsy, Peter Pan, on and on and on and on and on. And he needed a sort of an MC narrator for the evening, and I did not want to do that. I thought, well, that's not an actor's job. That's like a persona job, and I didn't understand what it was or what it would be. So I reluctantly took the show because he offered for me to write my own part in it, and I figured, well, he's the greatest musical director of the 20th century. I know I want to direct, maybe sit at his feet for a couple of months and learn something. But One of the characters that I played in that show was Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. Now, I played 16 people in the course of that night. And it's one of my favorite stories about Jerry Robbins. I don't know what it says about me. In some ways, I'm proud of it. In some ways, I go, you're such an asshole. But Fiddler was the last thing in the show. And I was 29 years old, and I was doing a very topal, my Tevye, a very gritty voice, and very Russian, very, and Jerry loved it. He said, I love it. And I had like 8 lines to introduce the tradition number as Tevye. And in rehearsal, he goes, I have an idea. I want you to try this. Come out, do these 2 lines as Tevye. Then do these 2 lines as you. Then these 3 lines as Tevye. These 2 lines as you. And then start singing the song. And I went, am I dressed in the thing with the beard and the hat and the seats and the... Yeah. And you want me to start like... and then talk like this? Yeah. I went, why would I do that? He said, well, you've been playing these characters all night. This will show how the actor, leaps in and out of the person. I said, no, it'll be like I can't hold the character or something. And now we're starting to have and he's a thing, and I go, I don't think so, Jerry. I don't, that doesn't feel right. And now it's getting hot. Do it, I want to see it. I'm not feeling it, so finally, I back him into a corner, or he backs himself into a corner, and he goes, all right, look, it's probably a terrible idea. Do me a favor. Would you show it to me one time so I can just get it out of my system? Perfectly reasonable, right, for a legendary director. And I go, no. Because there's a possibility that you might like it. And I'm telling you, I'm not doing that 8 times a week on a Broadway stage, so why don't you just put it out of your mind now? And he went, you're not going to show it to me. I went, I'm not. Now, and he went, all right, okay. Now, might it have been brilliant? Maybe. It may have been. He was smarter than me. It may have been brilliant. But at a 29-year-old, unknown actor working on Broadway, to look Jerome in the eye and go, no, fuck off, I'm not going to do it. Is good, bad, or indifferent. It is the power of no. If you know what you cannot bring yourself to, you can create all kinds of possibilities. Believe it or not, no more often than not creates a possibility than kills one. So just know, I know there's a lot of young artists, filmmakers, storytellers. Our business is notorious for taking your good idea and going, you know what else would be great? You can weigh those. Sometimes there's a good idea there. But when you know it's not you, say no. Say no. You will find a path to make the thing you want to make in some form, but make the thing you want to make. Don't die on someone else's cross. Die on the hill you want to take, good, bad, or indifferent. So that is part of the secret.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason